Well, I definitely have a little updates to talk about when it comes to the MLB mostly and a little bit on the NBA here, but it seems like there's still a little bit of a headbutting, pissing matchup that's going on between the Major League Baseball and the Players Association where they can't seem to agree on number of games played and how salaries paid. It almost sounds like the framework is almost there, to play around 72, 76 games, and then hopefully they could agree on having a full prorated salary there. I mean, it's definitely not looking good for both sides, just because of the optics of it. We got billionaires and millionaires fighting here. I mean, keep in mind it's prorated salary from this is how much you would make per game is the same, but instead of playing 162, you're only playing maybe 40% of the games here. However, I think the hand might be forced that maybe if there is a Major League Baseball season, it might only be 50 games because of what's been going on here. As cases definitely have been rising, as the economy opens up here, but cases definitely have been rising a lot more. In the U.S. here were several teams. I know recently, the other day there, I only heard there was 8 players on the Philadelphia Phillies that tested positive for COVID-19 here. I know Florida, Arizona, and Texas, those are the major states where cases have actually been rising. Since things have been reopening here, and Major League Baseball still seems to have an idea that they want to play, in their home cities here, which I think is still a lot riskier than potentially having a hub city model, which the other major leagues are. And it's definitely going to be interesting also with the NBA. And even to some extent the MLS soccer, is both the NBA and the MLS, they were looking at playing at the ESPN Sports in Florida there, Orlando, Florida there, but if Florida is starting to see a cases rising from COVID-19 here, I know some of it's regionalized, it's definitely going to be interesting to know what's going to happen here. Is definitely, speed bumps seem to be expected along the way when it comes to trying to get return to play here, but I think I have a feeling that Major League Baseball, while I think there's going to eventually be a potential strike or lockout here because the Players Association and the league aren't seen to be talking on the same language here, and you almost might as well think we are in some kind of dispute right now. This is the only dispute right now is the fact that it's trying to return to play from this global pandemic here. However, I know it also gets messier too, that the league can also force the players back to work too. I know that sounds very silly as well. You got well-off players and owners here, but I'm thinking with recent developments here, and I know that spring training facilities, especially in Florida and Arizona, have all been closed until they clean up here. And if you got players that are testing positive for this, that's definitely going to set things back a few weeks now, because now they have to quarantine, or that's what they tell us to do here in Canada here. But and then speaking of Canada here, you got the Toronto Blue Jays, where they were looking at playing games in Dundee and Florida here, but now they're kind of homeless here because you still got restrictions in Canada when it comes to the quarantine and the border, especially the border being closed up until towards the end of July there. To no extent to travel there, but then there's been stories out there where that drive from Washington State border with British Columbia to Alaska is not a small drive there, but that's another story there. But it's definitely interesting to know what's going to happen here when it comes to Major League Baseball. Just, are they ever going to start doing this? And I can sense that there is going to be some kind of labor stoppage right now in the future, since they can't seem to agree on number of games and number of salaries. But with cases rising, it's definitely going to probably change their plans by force from the hand here. And you also got to wonder about the NBA when it comes to still playing in Florida, if Florida is starting to get hard hit here. But what do you think of all this here? I think still, as we know, what the plan is that Major League Baseball was still hoping to maybe resume play middle of July there. But I think, given my last video where I talked about the headbutting still continues here, and that's why it's delaying the start here. That I think you're only going to see a 50, 60. I know the Players Association said they do not want to sell for less than 60 games, but if they want the season to still end at the end of September, have playoffs go on in October, and have the World Series ended out before Halloween, unless there's extenuating circumstances just after Halloween, the end of October there, I think you're only going to see at most 50, 60 game season now with all these events here. And then with the NBA, well, they're still committed to starting their 8 games to wrap up a season and decide the playoffs with the 22 teams that are returning starting on the 30th of July there. And then if it's going to take a couple months to go through the playoffs here, the Larry O'Brien Trophy will not be awarded until September here. But of course, all this talk about return to play here, we got to emphasize do it as safe as possible. And there's definitely some speed bumps along the way here, and we're not officially in that where all the players are in the bubble here. And this definitely emphasizes even more why, if they want to continue on and conclude the season, have a championship, or in case of baseball, have something, and then have a World Series this year, they all need to be in the bubble here. And I think Major League Baseball needs to look at possibly the Hub City idea again, because it's definitely a lot riskier if they're still playing in their home stadiums with no fans. I know it's all about trying to maximize revenue here, but it definitely looks worse on the Major League Baseball part now, because the NBA, they are rolling back their salaries here, and then I'll talk about the NHL separately, that the salary cap is not likely going to go up the next couple seasons now because revenue is going to be cut here. And keep in mind that in the NHL, to maintain the 50-50 share between salaries and league revenue here, players are going to be taking a lot more off their paychecks that go into the escrow fund because of the make up the differences in revenue there. That's like saying you got to give so much of your paycheck to your employer there to make up revenue there, and you don't know if you're going to get that money back or not. So definitely the other leagues are definitely sacrificing, but I'd still say it doesn't look good for Major League Baseball. But what do you think of everything when it comes to Major League Baseball and the NBA and return to play plans and given recent events here? That's just my take in a nutshell here. So if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders. I mostly talk Calgary sports, but I casually follow these other leagues here, and given these insane times that we're in right now, I just wanted to document and make these videos on something to look back on years from on the road that think this is what happened, how we got through it. But I also do personal vlogs, attempt at comedy, and I also share my experiences with Sam on the road or at a sport event here. So if it all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you need to do, just make sure you subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below there. For other ways, you can follow me there and maybe see some other announcements or feature plans on what I plan to do for making content in the future here. So as I say here, I'll see you in the next video here.